So the Dharma talk topic this evening is it's a slice of Buddhist psychology, sort of like Buddhist Psych 101, and with an intention towards um giving more insight and suggestions for practice, more material around how to practice with strong emotions, specifically, or any emotion, but particularly the stronger ones that um, yeah, historically, I've personally had more struggle with finding some sort of uh, uh, movement within and when it sort of feels like, which direction do I swim in now? And but if I have a direction, then it's much easier that there's a path to walk. Yeah. Um, yeah. I was debating whether or not I would share this little anecdote, but I'm leaning towards yes. And Devin's nodding happily, um, even though she doesn't know what I'm gonna say. um, yeah, I remember quite vividly being 18 years old on campus for undergrad on UC Santa Barbara campus, and I was longboarding through campus and longboarded past this building that I'd seen every day, called the Career and Counseling Services, and um, didn't really think much of it, and suddenly can't remember what happened or why it happened, but I just suddenly was like furious. I was like super, super mad. And I had this idea of myself at the time that I was someone who Joe's laughing, that I was someone who didn't get angry or didn't have a lot of like irritation in me. And um it was more that I wasn't really surfacing it or censoring it at all. Or giving the nutriment to it. So as a result, there would be these moments when anger that I was sort of purposely avoiding or disregarding would suddenly come to the fore. And to me, it felt sudden and kind of random, even, or overwhelming. And so I remember that day I was longboarding, and I longboarded into the career and counseling office, because that wasn't the first time that's happened, right? It had been happening for a few months up until that point, and it was becoming a little more worrisome. I was becoming more of a jerk to my friends, and it was really quite random. It wasn't. It was like not. I was starting to notice it within myself, and it was behavior that was disconcerting to me and a little weird. So I longboarded into the career and counseling office, and I was like, "Hey, can I set up an appointment? Something's going on." And got a very well-meaning grad student who was really psyched to sit with me and do this really complete intake. And at the end of it, she was like, "Yeah, I don't think you're bipolar. You seem, there's a little bit of manic, a little bit of mania to your affect, but I think I think you just have like freshman depression or something like that." But that's just the origin of the story, and the origin point to this investigation of um, how did I start feeling this way? Like, where did this emotion come from? Um, and and then with the Dharma and with this practice, the next logical questions are how can I make this? How can I feel differently? How can I not feel this way? Um, and so, to explore this briefly for the next 15 minutes or so, we're gonna dive into a little whirlwind, hopefully a gentle whirlwind of Buddhist psychology. And I have this photo. So this is the Plum Village diagram on mind consciousness. And if you start at the bottom, you'll notice um, this term store consciousness. And it loosely correlates to sort of Western psych unconscious or the id, sort of like everything that we're not aware of, but is there. That's sort of a like 70% ish accurate correlation. And there are 51 mental formations, possible mental formations that I'm going to give us another. There's a link to a sheet actually that lists all 51 mental formations. You won't have to type them down or remember them. And it's a way of familiarizing ourselves with um, the qualities of our experience as it arises, giving more framework and container and a naming essentially. Um, just the other week, actually, I had an interesting thought. I'd always had this, there's this common conversation in Buddhist circles of why do we start with the first noble truth, to be suffering? Like, why do we acknowledge suffering first? Like, why don't we start with the end of suffering as the first noble truth? And um, I sort of just left it for a while. And yesterday, a couple of weeks ago, I was sitting and I was like, it's not just the first truth isn't just the existence of suffering; it's the acknowledgement that suffering is here.
Yes.
And that things hurt and that things are hard and that people are in pain and just saying that I feel like a relief. It's strange. It's really kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But the recognition that things aren't always good and that things can be bad is a relief. There can be, especially when our popular society is geared towards really, really convincing ourselves that there's nothing wrong, or that things aren't wrong. Um, so come back from that tangent. Actually, if y'all want to join me, I'm just gonna do a quick little scan around MySpace. Just probably end up looking out my window, but hmm, okay. So if I can bring your awareness back to this diagram, there are these 51 possible mental formations that are always existing in the store conscious, whether we're aware of them or not, whether we're actively um, giving them sort of metaphorical water or not, they're all there. Um, and these seeds can be, like it says here, it can be mindfulness, concentration, insight, it can be despair, fear, anxiety, frustration, shame before others. And then as you see there's this sort of these arrows that pop up from the seed and arise from store consciousness to mind consciousness. And there's this phenomenon that happens when something that was before unconscious suddenly becomes conscious, right? And so what happens there? Like, what is that? And in Buddhist psychology, the Buddha speaks about um, these seeds that exist, these mental formations, and then our awareness as uh, as water, as nutriment. So where we place our awareness, um, just in every moment, and uh, dictates which mental formations will have more strength, more nutriment, more fertilizer, or less nutriment. Yeah. So for example, um, just like there's a sort of kind of quasi cynical, but really like sad for me, joke that I sometimes make where I'm like, I feel like 30% American on a good day these days. Like maybe like 28. And just the other week, I sat and I listened to Michelle Obama's speech at the Democratic convention. And I was like, holy shit. And I'm just like sitting there, like, tears are kind of, like sitting at the corners of my eyes. And I've had the fortune to hear her speak before. And so I just have full trust in this person's system. And I was like, I feel like more American now than I've felt in the past 10 years. Like I'm like solidly above 65%. I didn't think that was possible anymore. Like I'm ready to expand, and um, it was a it was a damn good speech. It was a really good speech and one of the best I've heard in this life, I think, if you all haven't had a chance to hear. And
Mm.
yeah, that was aware that was me giving nutriment to the seed. That I wasn't even expecting that. I just saw Michelle. I was like, okay, please, Michelle, like speak to me. Didn't know what she was going to talk about, and I ended up coming out of it with these seeds
Mhm.
of hope in not just hope, but specific seeds of hope in democracy, hope in system of governance, hope in my country of land birth, and it's within 20 minutes of just speaking. And so this is just an example that I completely didn't mean to give of um, of how we can tend and how what we consume and give our awareness to affects the seeds that can then manifest from store consciousness into mind consciousness. Um, there's another sister in the Dharma, Tara Jewel Lingo. At this time, she was Sister Jewel, um, and I remember her giving a Dharma talk in Plum Village where I can't forget. I'll never forget the face she made. She was like, she'd been practicing. She was a nun for 9 years at that point, and I was so impressed with her practice. And she said, I had an insight into the nature of anger a couple months ago, and I was so happy and joyful, and didn't experience anger for 3 weeks, and I was so grateful. And then this morning, I experienced anger, and I was like, what? I thought I'd solved this. I thought I'd worked through this. I thought I'd understood this already. Like, what is going on? And um, it just that moment really sticks with me. And when I refer to what she's saying through the framework of Buddhist psychology, it makes complete sense,
Mm.
right? It's like just because the seed of anger that's arisen in the mind consciousness, where we then have the practice or the insight or the wisdom or the sangha, the conditions to be like, oh, yo, this is anger. Like you're on fire right now. Like you're suffering. Like let's take care of this. And then we do it. We do it. We practice. We have the conditions to orient to what's regulating. We self soothe. We realized that there was a misperception or that malice wasn't really the root of it or what have you. And so we recognize that, so that anger dissipates and goes away, and then we feel amazing. We're like, oh wow, like this anger that was burdening me didn't require any contact with the object of my anger. I was able to sort of resolve it, and it's gone back to the stored consciousness. This feels great. That doesn't mean that anger will never come back again. It just means that the conditions for anger to be arisen in the mind consciousness are no longer present, right? Just because I feel 70% American now doesn't mean that there will come a day where I'm suddenly like, I really don't, I need another passport, like now, you know? So how long a mental formation arises, and this has always been like a kind of a, what's the word? It just amps me up. It's a little activating in sort of a fiery way. It's like how long a mental formation remains in our mind consciousness is a matter of our practice. It's a matter of it's really we are our mind. I don't just want to say we are our mind because the Buddha expressly says we are not our thinking. But um, it's really one of those moments where it's like I can't blame anyone else for my clothes not being washed. There's a process, there's a series of protocols, there's water, there's soap, there's a laundry basket. There can be days where it won't be as fragrant as I want it to be, but I can't go around blaming other people or blaming, I mean, there's everything contributes. um, there are definitely factors that could make having fresh smelling clothes easier. I'm on a complete tangent. um, so let's see. Oh, okay, the next thing is intergenerational seeds. I if we it's quite poetic actually, like really can this visual of a garden, and all these mental formations as seeds in this garden, and when they blossom they become these flowers that we can see. And if we sort of fantastically visualize ourselves in the store consciousness, not the mind conscious but in the store conscious, then these seeds can be bigger or smaller just because of the nature of how long they've been there, right? And so in my life, in this lifetime, I touch frequently that the seeds of fear and mistrust and doubt are was really great. Like I really have a lot. They're triggered very quickly in me. They arise very quickly. There's a really strong self protective mechanism, and I it was sort of like unconscious for a long time until like the past 7 or 8 years, as I sort of become uh, friends, peers with my parents. I begin to recognize how strong these habits and seeds are in them all the time. Um, and so there, I mentioned this to weave a bit of spaciousness into our witnessing of ourselves. When we begin to look at our soul consciousness and our mind conscious, especially with this practice, it can be quite shocking to suddenly like I'm gonna switch metaphors again, but it's like opening the door to a room that you weren't really that you forgot was there, right? And you open the storage room and you're like, oh my gosh, there's this storage full of stuff that I haven't opened in like 25 years. I don't even know where to begin to start sorting this. And so when we work with our mind to have abundant kindness and compassion alongside our awareness of what we're tracking. Um, and to weave in this knowledge, this insight of intergenerational transmission, that our seeds of fear, our seeds of craving, desire, they've been passed down like over and over and over again, and for each of us in different quantities and qualities and ways. Um, I give food away so easily, you know, and I give money away very not easily comparatively, just for me. And I notice with my friends, it's very different, depending on like where it comes from. So um, I have like 4 more bullet points, and there's like 2 more minutes, so I'm gonna try and keep going. I want to leave some time for discussion. But okay, cool. Let's see. Uh, so yeah, this is sort of a worth talking about. with with this all said and done, with this understanding of how emotions and mental formations arise and stay and pass, how do we balance the art of when to intervene? Like when do I, if I see that there's fear and loneliness arising, and I'm watching this, and then I see that, oh, there's a desire to open the fridge, do I then say like, oh, this is like a bad thing, I don't want to do that, I'm gonna sit here and practice with my fear, it's not really real, I'm not gonna like turn into my craving? Or do I just let myself continue to be organically and just watch as this happens? And that's really what I would advocate. It's completely an experiment. Your practice is your own, we're all our own individual, but it's speaking to this quality that I don't think there's a name. We should really name this, Devin. But it's the impulse to um. I was just on the tip of my tongue. Give me 1 sec. Oh, I lost it. It'll come back to me. When we watch, it's the impulse of when we see something arising as it's arising, and we have awareness of it arising, and we know enough to be like, oh, this is happening, I can snap myself out of this right now, where I can continue with it as it is. Like when do we intervene in our own process, right? And it's really an art. I don't really, for me, there's no one answer, but what I can really share, and hopefully this is some comfort, allowing myself, permission myself as much as I can in that moment, because I do censor and suppress consciously and unconsciously. But if I just watch myself with as much compassion as is present in that moment, the habits that I'm, for whatever reason, less happy with, the ones that my wisdom body says, like, this isn't really the best thing for you, this isn't really the healthiest thing for you, those those dissipate slowly over time. They begin to change and lighten and shift, or at least shift quality, right? Like, I'm not eating 3 bags of Cheetos, even though I want to. I'm eating half a bag of tortilla chips. Like, it's there's change. And like, I'm not buying Ruffles. I'm asking my friends to buy Ruffles. Like, it's a little different. um, and I'm doing picnics like every season. Um, it's another way of saying, of labeling all this, is neural pathways, right? It takes, like, there's all these studies. It takes 2 weeks to build a new habit. It's the habits to be water, but also it's a way of it's all of that, and it's just the glasses that we're putting on as we're watching ourselves. I'm loving all these yawns that are coming through, and they're great. They're super welcome. It's like all of our systems are like, oh, like, yeah. Um, and the great news, that sounds so proselytizing. I take that back. This is what's really cool about all this is um, it means that transformation is possible. Like, this is really the model. It's so simple, but it's this is how we can transform at the base. And this is also, this is a little bit of a segue, but I think it's important to mention. This is the model and visualization that I also use when I'm referring to insight in Buddhism, and what the process of achieving insight looks like. It's not sitting there using my mind consciousness until I can analyze something, and then something pops up and I'm like, oh, that's what I should do. It's a process of watering the store consciousness, and then insight arises spontaneously. I'm sitting there, I don't even know what I was thinking about, and suddenly I'm like, oh, the first one was Ruth. um it's it and so that sort of, we don't need to try, is what I'm saying. There's no, like, there's no act of trying. It's a trying of building habits and knowing where to place our awareness in different uh, fields, different areas, and depending on conditions in that moment, an insight will arise. Um, and when conditions dissipate, this is important. Insights pass, right? So I've had so many times a lived insight of impermanence, where I'm like, yo, life is short. I need to be nice to my friends and family. I need to say kind things. Like, this is like, let's enjoy this. um but, and then I live my life, and then that insight becomes the knowledge of impermanence. Like, I know that this is true, but I no longer feel it to be true. I start driving recklessly. I start saying more mean things. I skip a friend's birthday or something, like these, and the insight arises again, and I was like, yo, like, I need to connect with my loved ones. Like, I need to check in. I need to see what's going on. And so it's just a way of understanding why and how things pop up and disappear and pop up and disappear. So it's not just like a jukebox. Um, I meant to say, the thing you spin and it pops
Jack
up.
in the Box, Jack in the
Back
Box.
in the box.
Yes.
Um, let's see. So really, what this boils down to is tending the garden, um, and understanding that there is a process at play, and that sometimes it takes time, and also it can be instant. Um, and it it's helpful. It's just like, it's a little bit of systems theory, to sprinkle through uh, what I imagine we're all experiencing in one way or another. Um, so it's enough of this talk. I want to leave some time for for discussion, questions, or comments. Thanks so much for your kind attention and joining with me on this. Thank you.
That's what's up right there.